Welcome back. This time we have some more happy stories to share with you. This is about finding lost animals. I have with me Nancy Despeaux and Mary Ann Rosato. And so I'm going to start with Nancy because I learned about, how did I learn about you? I read about you in Janelle Welch's paper,
right.
Nova Dog.
Right.
And I got in touch with Janelle and said you have some neat stories and it would really be good to have one. And she's recommended you. So how did this all begin? What happened here?
I'm with a group that we call ourselves AWOL Dogs. AWOL standing for Assistance with Our Lost Dogs.
Aww.
And we help people find their lost dogs. We help individual dog owners, rescues. If a business like a daycare loses a dog and they need help, whoever needs help finding their lost dog. And pretty much every member of the group, almost without exception, all came together in one way, and that is when a dog was lost near where they live or work or somewhere, and there was an organized effort around that dog, they got interested, joined the effort, got bit by the bug, and wanted to keep on doing it.
So how many, what are the numbers like?
Oh, we have about a dozen now. It's very small. We really could use 3-4 times that many.
Oh, really?
We've got about a dozen.
So they would organize in areas. So you would like to have like an Alexandria group, or it doesn't matter where you live?
No, I think I'd like to stay in Northern Virginia because we all want to be relatively close.
Okay.
But one group that's larger, because everybody's availability changes from one day to the next and whatnot. So if we had a lot more people and half of them or a quarter of them were available at one time, it would still be enough people to help more than we can help now. But as I say, it is a small group, and pretty much everybody in the group is interested in finding lost dogs, not so interested in organizing the group, working towards a 501c3, recruiting more members, fundraising. We just want to find lost dogs.
Okay, so you really just want to carry out the mission. And
Right.
it really gets complicated if you create a structure. So as long as you can just go out and do it and use social networking today, you don't need to. But before, while we have lots of time, you want to introduce your friends sitting here next to you.
I would love to.
Your friends sitting here next to you.
Both of my friends sitting here. I would love to.
All our friends.
Mary Ann Rosato, as we said, and this is Spot. And Spot is a dog that was lost that our group helped to find. And Spot's story was, it was really fun for us, very, very stressful.
So how did you find him, Mary Ann?
Well,
what happened?
I'll set it up a little bit quickly how he got lost. I had taken him to a friend's house that he's been to dozens of times, and we went to a movie. His son came home 5 minutes later. Typical teenager, opened the door, closed it. Spot ran out looking for me. I go to the world's longest movie, Avatar. Of course, it had to be that. 2.5 hours later, I come home, I walk in, and I'm like, oh, okay, where's Spot? And Riley's like, what do you mean, where's Spot? I'm like, no, that's not funny. Where's Spot? And he's like, what? Realized the dog is lost.
Wow,
so
for 2 hours or more.
Yeah, 2.5 hours, yeah. So like 11 o'clock at night, I'm looking and walking up and down the streets. This is in Alexandria. I was in Park Fairfax neighborhood. Didn't know what to do. And I immediately posted on Craigslist, which is, I think, really how you found me, Nancy.
We do, all of our members troll Craigslist.
Oh, is that one of the ways you
reach out?
Okay.
Yes, that's what we do. And one of our members contacted her, and
then
I think
what
lots
happened?
of people did.
Well,
actually.
it's a whole, I learned that this is a whole kind of an art and science in finding a dog, and Nancy and her group schooled me on what to do. So the first thing you do is put a blog together, and then I had started the blog. Normally Nancy would do something like that because she's very good with kind of the technical end of things. And it's kind of interesting. Spot's blog was up for about 4 days. I think we had like 2,600 visitors on that following his. He happened to have a very exciting story, and he's now my $1 million dog. Because the next thing that you do is, yes, he says for an adopted dog, he's become quite expensive, and I'll explain that quickly. But the blog up. up, so you're starting to reach out, getting to people. They put a Facebook page up for them, certain modus operandi that's followed, and then there's posters that you put up, and there's a certain format that you follow with the posters because people have seconds to look at it. You put them in a certain area in an intersection, so you have to get a bead, try and get a bead on the dog. So now he's been gone 2 or 3 days at this point.
He can get down if you want.
Yeah, you want to go? He doesn't really want to. He just wants to whine. So let's see. So then Nancy got in touch with me, and several volunteers came out, especially Donna DeLeo, I want to mention, and Nadine Zudima. Did a lot of work with me, so putting up the posters, and people started calling in. They started citing Spot. Unfortunately,
they were seeing him.
They were seeing him, and they would call my cell phone.
Oh, they were seeing him.
They started seeing, because we papered,
yes.
literally, I mean, I didn't sleep for like 6 days because we just papered Alexandria and Arlington with his poster everywhere. And it was January, it was freezing cold, you're working all day.
And I bet you were heartbroken.
Well, I was, because he's a rescue dog. He's extraordinarily bonded to me, because I don't think anyone's touched him before I got him. So he's like overly bonded. And that was one of the issues, because anytime anyone tried to help him, he would bark and run miles and miles further away. Oh. So he was many miles, and dogs can cover, I found out, a great, great distance. And sadly, they can also live on, in a sense, a long time. So they could starve to death. I mean, it was winter. He's so little. I was like, he can't even get into a trash can or trash bin. But finally, 4 or 5 days into it, we got a break. It's like 8.
Yeah,
it was on the 6th day.
It was on the 6th day.
And there was an ice storm coming that night. And at 8 o'clock that morning, a young lady called me on her way to work and saw Spot basically in Arlington. And from 8 o'clock that morning till 8:30 that night, that was a rescue day. So I say, yeah,
well,
Nancy, you tell us.
It
was so exciting.
I love this. Some girl saw Spot, and she saw the poster, I think, on a bus or on the side of a bus or something like that. So she called the number. She went out to the location, and I was stuck at work. So my job for that day was to update the blog, and I gave a blow by blow. Every hour.
Almost every hour. It was like moment by moment.
Nadine had a job such that she could be on the phone all day.
Yeah.
So
and then the volunteers started pouring out. By the way,
that's right. She was getting the calls. She would tell me what was happening. I would put it on the blog. And I rounded up other people to
people
send
started coming out
there, and people were stopping. It was at a shopping center, and so people that came out to the shopping center
there was that park
stopped.
Behind it. Yeah.
And then they would spend the rest of the day looking for the dog, and people would go to the blog, and they would keep signing back on after an hour to see what happened,
to see the next exciting news.
And then there would be another post saying there was another sighting, this, that, or the other, and I think finally at one point I said, we need to call Sam, who's the dog tracker, and I called her. I knew she was on some track for some cat or something or other.
We should explain a tracker. These dogs are trained to find other animals. So they train on things like cadavers, and they've found lost children.
You
absolutely do.
Put me in touch with
we'll do that.
What's Sam's last name?
Pure Gold Pet Tracker.
But I don't want to run out of time before we get to the end of your stories. So,
but
so I got her to come out. I said, could you just leave the cat case for a couple of hours and come out? And
she was near Baltimore.
So she did. She was in D.C.
Oh, D.C.
And so she dropped what she was doing, and she came over and tracked him. And there was a point at which her dog, her scent tracking dog, started to kind of go nuts.
Yeah, I've never seen a dog, a golden retriever,
and
act
I think
like that.
You said, okay, what does that mean? She's just going nuts. And she said, it's because your dog is right here somewhere. In fact, we
were expecting to jump out of the bushes at us.
Right. So she said, so I think
and you were there
I
too, right? So we could hear your voice.
Well, the thing was, it was from 8 o'clock in the morning. At that point, now we're like 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, and my goal was to get him home before the ice storm hit. And as I said, Sam's dog is a golden retriever, which is not a sight hound, and this dog was acting, or she was sent as a sight. And I said, and Sam told me this is the hottest scent that she's ever been on.
Ever.
We were expecting her to jump, but Spot was there was too many people, so we walked for literally 5 or 6 miles. We did this huge circuit, and finding him, and literally carloads of volunteers came out. People were coming out. There were Marines coming out of they have a lot of military lived in the area, and the word was spreading from building to people. People were running out of their buildings. There's so many sweet people. I was sitting there out in the cold for however long, and people drove by, brought me sandwiches, coffee, because I went to go in. Donna DeLeo, one of the volunteers, brought like 6 hot chickens and stationed them all. She goes, I'm going to buy a chicken every hour on the hour. I said, no, no more chickens. That's enough. So finally, you know, it was the end of the day. It was well, it was something like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. One of the girls had her children with her, and they said, "I said, you need to go home, girls. You know, it's freezing cold. You need to do your homework." No, we're not leaving until we find Spot. And finally, it was just too late and too dark, and the rain was just, you know, freezing rain was starting to happen. I was finally on my own, just Rainer, my other dog.
Well, I think Sam had said, "I need to get
else I can do.
I need to get my dog away from here because she's going nuts." And then she told you what to say. She told you to speak conversationally over the fence.
Right. He turned out he was He turned out he was in a community garden, and everybody finally, Sam left, everybody, it was just myself and Rainer, and the way to find it is just not like, because you don't want that stress or that high pitch in your voice, and so you do things like, come on, Spot, it's time, want to go for a ride? Do you want your dinner? Are you hungry? And I had a pocket full of hot chicken, too, so that didn't hurt matters. And finally, so I was walking by myself up and down the street around trying to get behind this garden, and about 15 or 20 minutes later, I heard a really weird sound. I thought, is that a hurt bird? What is that sound? That's a very strange sound. Spot had been barking and had been really pretty much without water. He was basically dehydrated, starving, and extraordinarily tired. I mean, so many people risked their lives to save this silly little dog. And I jumped over the fence in this garden because it was locked, and they had told me too, so oftentimes when your dog leaves, they stop responding to their names or won't come to their owners. And I approached him very carefully. I said, Spot, do you want to, you know, come.
Yeah,
and
because he'd been rescued once before.
Right, and he literally jumped up into my arms. So, and I do want to say, people, there was Jeff and, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking on the names. A couple stopped their car. He was getting onto the on-ramp of 395, and a couple literally risked their lives on Arlington Ridge Road. Literally risked their lives.
Steered him away.
To push him off.
And those people, when we had a celebration at her house the Saturday night after it, I walked into the house, and I remember asking somebody else, so is this house full of, like, Marianne's friends? And every single one of them was a stranger.
I knew the least amount of people. We had, like, the blog up for, there's like 2,600 people following the blog. I said, come one, come all, even if you're just following the blog, all you have to do is wear polka dots because of spots. So people came in their spots, and we had a huge house full of people, and it was the most joyous occasion, and strangers met strangers that were already friends.
People that had searched for him. Yeah. People that had just read the blog. It was beautiful.
One of the happiest endings ever.
This is why we do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's, I mean, this is a very emotional story, and what you went through. And you gave Amy the website so people know how to find you now, because losing a pet is just
traumatic.
Awful.
Devastating.
Well, you know, it's not like you can go
How many days was he actually gone?
He was gone 6 days, five nights, and 6
Friday to Thursday.
Yeah, and I pulled up to my house, and I could hear the tip-tap of the freezing rain hitting. I met my goal.
In time.
He got home in time. I didn't think he would make it another night, to be honest. So.
Well, we have to say goodnight, but for those out there, come back and see us again, and check out her website, and hopefully we don't have too many lost animals. Thank you, Marianne and Nancy.
Need our services, but if you do.
Good night now.